authors allowed to write song lyrics, song titles, and artist names into their stories legally, and if so, to what extent? Today we're talking to everyone's favorite IP and entertainment lawyer to find out more to make sure you're legally protected in the publishing industry.
My name is Tony Iliakostas. I'm an adjunct professor of entertainment law and IP at New York Law School, and I have an Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok account called The IP Professor that is dedicated to all things intellectual property.
Tony, one of the things we've been talking about recently in the publishing industry is whether or not we're allowed to use song lyrics inside of our story. So are we legally allowed to use part of, all of, some of, none of those song lyrics?
I'm going to use the classic answer that almost every lawyer likes to use, which is it depends. But sincerely, I think in a situation like this, it's really going to depend on a variety of factors. So I think what's important to sort of know to set the groundwork is that when you're using lyrics, that's one component of the copyright that's involved in music. So with music, you obviously have the sound recording, but then ask yourself, how is that sound recording made possible? That was made possible with the written lyrics, the sheet music that shows what notes are played. So that's the secondary copyright component that's commonly found in music, the underlying musical composition. What I often tell my students is the two-dimensional version of the song. So those lyrics are all protected under copyright law. And as we've talked many a time on our collab videos before, copyright is an original work of authorship that's fixed in the tangible medium of expression. So the moment a songwriter puts pen to paper and writes down the lyrics and the notes associated with that song, you have instant copyright protection. And then, of course, that's reinforced with copyright registration. Now, if you're using a song lyric in your book, what you mainly have to ascertain is, one, how much of the song lyric am I using, or how much of the song lyrics am I using? And two, in what manner am I expressing it? And the reason why those are relevant questions to ask is because when you're using somebody else's copyrighted material, normally if you're using it without permission, that would qualify as copyright infringement. But in the manner that I'm talking about, you could have a viable argument for fair use. And fair use operates as a defense to copyright infringement, so long as you're using somebody else's copyrighted work for criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research. If it's for none of those reasons, you don't have a viable fair use defense. If it is for any of those reasons, then you could delve into a 4-factor test that helps assess the strength or weakness of a fair use argument. So for example, the 4 factors being, the amount and substantiality of the copyrighted work being used, the nature of the copyrighted work, the purpose and character of the use, the market harm that is suffered as a result of your use of somebody else's copyrighted work. Weighing all those factors could bear a lot of relevance in your assessment. So to kind of put it into context, if let's say you're writing a chapter, and let's say it's like one of these coming of age stories. John is in the car listening on his iPod to a song that he often listens to when he thinks of his grandfather. And then it cuts to the lyric, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." That's the best you'll get from me. But you cut to that lyric from Simon Garfunkel, the Sound of Silence. The setup before it, talking about John reminiscing of his days with his grandfather, in some way you could argue is a commentary that then leads into an assessment of the how you're using that one lyric from Sound of Silence. Maybe you reinforce it by saying, he thinks of this, he thinks of Sound of Silence because that was the song that his grandfather often listened to when he was coping with mourning or something like that. And then maybe that lets the reader say, allows the reader to think, oh, well, why is he mourning? Why are we talking about this? And then that provides you, the author, an opportunity to embellish it with a little bit more detail that provides a more robust commentary as to why you provided that one lyric from that one song. Now, what I've done in that example is lay out what I think is a viable, commentary argument there. And you're also using one lyric. So now that drives at the amount of substantiality of your use of the copyrighted work in proportion to the whole work. The Sound of Silence is a fairly long song, but using one lyric of it is not, in my opinion, enough to warrant saying, oh, this is going to be bona fide copyright infringement. If you were using several lines from that song, maybe that's a bit of a different story. If you're using a song lyric in a standalone fashion, or several song lyrics in a standalone fashion, that's the kind of situation that I would be a bit wary of, because where's your setup? Where's your commentary? Where's your narrative that helps allow you to build that fair use argument? You haven't really done anything to write to it in the script. If it's just there as a non sequitur, really, what is there to say in terms of fair use? So I would say for any authors that are contemplating using song lyrics, weigh the fair use argument heavily in your decision to decide whether or not you're going to use song lyrics, because I think at the end of the day, the bottom line is, if you're able to provide some commentary that sets up quite well your use of one or maybe two song lyrics, maybe three max, maybe then you have something that feels and acts like a good fair use argument. Otherwise, it's something that could be in questionable copyright infringement territory.
So it's likely okay to use one or two lines. We don't want to see massive passages inside of our novels, and it's not a great idea to do it standalone. So for example, if an author were going to start their chapter off with the chapter number and then a song lyric and then get into the body of the text and actually have the novel, that may not be the best use of song lyrics inside of books. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think the other point to that, what you're expressing there is, I think it's not worth the risk to just do that latter activity that you're talking about. Having that one lyric, okay, maybe it's not going to, bug out a music publisher, but if they see enough of it throughout a book, that's going to raise some red flags. And trust me, music publishers, the music industry is a litigious industry as it is. Artists are suing other artists. We see it all the time. So imagine the music label or music publisher going after a lay person just for an involuntary use of a series of song lyrics. It's really not worth your while. If you feel like you don't have a good setup for commentary, and you feel like you have to inevitably license, then maybe going to the music publisher and asking for a license agreement is the way to go. Or better yet, just avoid it. Come up with your own song lyrics. Make something up. And I think, that could work just as effectively as using the real deal. So be careful, because I think at the end of the day, I've said it before and I'll say it again, you have to ask yourself, how deep are my pockets? Because that's going to bear a lot of relevance to this broader question of, do you have the capacity to handle an infringement claim? Do you have the capacity to, go back and forth after receiving a cease and desist from a music publisher, so on and so forth?
And I really like that you pointed out it's not just in the context of a single chapter. So some authors may have heard that and said, oh, well, I can use one line here, and then in chapter 2, I can use another line. Chapter 3, I can use another line, but that still builds up. And you have multiple lines from that song or other songs, and that should be something we're a little bit cautious of as well. One thing I do want to check in with you on, just to sum up what we're doing here, we want to be careful as we're using lyrics. Are we okay to use song titles and artist names if we are writing them into our story for some reason or another?
So song titles are okay because, generally speaking, titles, not just specific to songs, but titles are never protected under copyright law. So nothing in that realm is going to be a problem. This has actually been well adjudicated. One of my favorite cases that I teach on this topic is Peters versus West. It was a lawsuit that was filed by an independent rap artist named Vince Peters, who had sued Kanye West over the song Stronger. Anybody that knows Kanye from before his anti-Semitic activity, of course, his questionable activity, we often forget that he once was very well decorated and celebrated rapper, and he had his hit song Stronger, which sampled Daft Punk's version of Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Now, the title Stronger was also shared with Vince Peters. He also had a song called Stronger, and essentially the lyrics were somewhat the same in the sense that both of them said, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger," in some variation of or the other, which is a nod to the maxim by Friedrich Nietzsche. And then, of course, there was a reference to Wronger, Longer, and then one reference to Kate Moss that was, according to the lawsuit, consistent with both of them. And the court found that beyond the lyrics sharing some similarity and then being too factual to warrant copyright protection, the titles themselves, Stronger, there's nothing in copyright law that says that titles that share the same name can be protected under copyright law. And if that were the case, then go tell Kelly Clarkson that her song Stronger is a problem as well. So at the end of the day, titles are fine. In terms of persons, again, I feel like it's kind of the same thing. Again, it's not really something that is going to warrant any type of infringement problem. I wouldn't even see it being a personality right infringement matter. I know we've talked about it before in previous videos, but where you just have to be careful is that when you're using a famous person's name and you're creating a false narrative that could be deemed defamatory behavior, that's when it could become a problem. The other point to that, though, is if you're making a fiction book that invokes a real person's name, there's no, it's fiction, so it's designed to be, fake. You're not saying it as
Right.
fact, therefore maybe the defamation claim isn't strong. But then again, why go through all that stress? Why go through all the legal legwork to then end up having some type of settlement or no case? It's months wasted, money wasted. It's just not worth your while. So beyond that point, if you like name dropped a celebrity, like, John Smith was a fan of Chris Evans because he played Captain America, that's okay. Because what you're doing is fact. You're just laying out something that's factual, and there's nothing really in that realm that makes it infringement worthy.
And if you have further questions on any of that, you can check out our episode with Tony where we talk all about whether or not you can put people you real life know into your novels or famous people into your novels. And as always, you can drop your questions down below. We'll be monitoring those for you, and you can reach out to Tony online. He is fantastic about getting back to everybody. So Tony, where can everybody find you?
You can follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at the IP Professor.
Drop your questions down below, and if you have topic ideas for upcoming episodes with Tony, go ahead and let us know to make sure that we're keeping you legally protected inside of the publishing, reading, and writing industries. And make sure you follow along because we're dropping daily videos to help you level up inside of the publishing world and the reading world to make sure you're growing, creating more profit, and making an incredible community for yourself and for other readers. I'll see you in the next episode.